Yo, so what is a heli reset? A heli reset is basically spinning upside down like a helicopter. If that wasn't clear enough, then you have to stop and chain as many resets as you want while keep spinning like a helicopter. Pretty simple, right? Okay, so before we get into how to understand the shot, how to do the shot, and then how to train it, we first have to take a quick look at where it first started. The first person to start doing heli resets was a player called Gainer. Gainer was the pioneer of multiple chain resets, and he even started casually doing helis sometimes in his videos. So I noticed that, and I myself started seriously investing time in learning that way of chaining resets. And it wasn't until the first ever Pulse X Thrustmaster tournament that I popularized heli resetting. Now, everyone just doesn't touch grass and grinds the heck out of this mechanic, so why not show you that path? Alright, so let's start. So before we get into anything that's pretty advanced, let's start to understand the reset, so the heli reset. First thing you have to understand is that you're not actually just spinning, you're not just like a helicopter, you're actually hogging the ball a little bit. And what I mean by that is whenever you're doing helis, the belly of the car or the four wheels of the car are always pointing towards the ball. You will never find yourself in situations where you do heli resets and you end up with something like this. See? So it will mess you up all the time if you use the aerial that's not required. So the belly of the car or the four wheels then don't actually get positioned correctly. And the way you do that, if you want to understand a bit more about this, you can check out my air rolling video. But just simple explanation, if I have the ball on top of me and I start doing an inverted tornado spin, so that means moving my stick or doing an input in the same direction as my arrow, then you'll notice that the four wheels of my car are pointing towards the ball. So now if I start feathering that, and if I start doing that, you can see that I'll start boosting upwards, that's very important, and I'll start hogging the ball. So whenever I'm doing anything around the ball, you'll see that the four wheels of my car are always pointing towards the ball. And so with that, then I can actually get the resets. So yeah, those are the first two things you need to understand about helis, is that one, you need to use inverted tornado spins, and with it you can actually even start boosting upwards, so that then when you're doing heli resets you can actually waste less time and less momentum by actually boosting upwards and keeping yourself very close to the ball. Okay, so another thing is that whenever you're doing heli resets, it's super important that you get super hard resets. And if you want to understand more about these kinds of resets, you can check out my video about understanding resets and chaining more resets. But long story short, whenever you are very close to the ball, or whenever you're diagonal or getting the reset with the back, you'll notice that I will get a reset like this, and I get thrown, like the nose of my car gets thrown up. If I get a reset that's very hard, then my car starts to move a little bit less. It's a bit more controllable if I'm a bit more underneath the ball. Try and do it. There, you see how it doesn't move like that? That's just because I'm getting the ball right underneath the ball and I'm not actually moving my nose in awkward positions. I'm not tilted. That's very important. If you're tilted, then you'll kind of carry the ball and you will kind of you won't actually get very consistent resets. So that's the second thing. So first, you have to make sure that whenever you're air rolling, you're actually maybe feathering a little bit, so that you are never boosting downwards. And two, you're always getting resets very solidly with the entire four wheels of your car, so that your car doesn't move too much. That's the second thing. So the first reset, that doesn't matter. That doesn't move your car too much, but whenever you're getting more and more resets, you'll notice that it's way more important to get harder and harder resets. If I start moving to the side, it's a little hard for me to do that, but if I start tilting and if I start moving to the side, and just see how it just, all those like little variations, I have to counteract all those little variations in every single reset, and it's very hard to do that if you don't have the control. So make sure that you get perfect resets every single time, right underneath, with very solid touches on the ball. If you want to understand more about resets and how to chain them, well, there's the masterclass. But anyways, let's get into another third thing that actually makes Heli resets simpler, and the most important thing probably. So that's boost management. In Heli resets, you barely boost, and that's one thing that a lot of people get wrong when they start doing it, is whenever you're trying to do Helis, you boost unnecessarily. And it's not until you start putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, like you just throw yourself into the air and you just go for it without really using too much boost, that you'll start to actually improve with Helis and improve with your boost management abilities. So never boost too much. It's always good if you boost as little as possible, and you're usually kind of throwing yourself into a specific position, and then you kind of once you're there, you get the reset, and depending on where you are, you have really a specific window of possibilities as to when you can boost. If you boost too late, then it's just too late and you can do nothing about it. If you boost too early, then you can maybe start boosting back again, back to the same place, but it will be very inconsistent because you have to counter all that momentum that you then carried with that first time that you boosted. Okay, so now that we understood the reset and you have the basics as to what makes the reset better and what makes the reset inconsistent, then we can actually start getting into the inputs. There are really no big inputs you need to learn. It's mostly just some very simple boost management and some little aero recoveries, but in reality you're only doing two things. You're moving your stick to the side and then you're stalling, and then maybe using your arrows or your stick to adjust, but we will get into that later. So let's separate it into two parts. So first let's get into the basic inputs, and then let's get into the adjustments. So the basic inputs are really just first find one of your arrows. So if I'm using arrow right, I'm gonna be moving my stick to the right, so that whenever I need to adjust or boost upwards, then I can actually boost upwards when I'm moving my stick to the right by doing inverted tornado spins. If I use arrow left, then I'll have to move my stick to the left. You can definitely use your opposite arrow, although the inputs are very difficult to get going, and it's a little bit harder to actually learn Heli resets that way. So I'd much rather first stick to an arrow, which you probably already have, and two, then you just move your stick in that direction So if you have arrow right, you move your stick to the right. If you have arrow left, you move your stick to the left. Now that you have done that, now let's get into doing the star. So you can do the star two different ways. So the first one is actually just learning the perfect star. And I'll show you right now how to do it. You can check my star tutorial, it's actually in my YouTube. I'll leave a link here for you to check it out. But the way you do a perfect star is basically you move your stick to wherever you need to move your stick to actually stall. So in my case, I would move my stick to the right. Now that I move it to the right, I do the stall, but I keep on moving to the right. And you'll see that if I keep on doing that, my car will just keep on tilting and it will be very hard to recover. So what I have to do is actually do a perfect stall. So counter whatever I did with my arrow left with my arrow right. And there it is. That's it. Now, the other thing you can do if you're more comfortable stalling in the other direction is you can actually do a whip back stall. So that just means moving your stick in the other direction and then doing the stall, but actually doing it in the opposite direction. Although you're still doing the same thing. You're still actually doing a perfect stall. So using both arrows to stall. And that way your car just keeps on being just straight and horizontal to the ground. That's it. That's it for the Helis. Now, whenever you're actually doing the Helis, you'll notice that just being flat is not good enough. So moving your stick to the side and then just letting it being on the side is just not good enough. So what you actually have to do is you have to do the inverted tornado spins. But you can actually just do these movements, but then actually use your stick to adjust for little things. Although not too many things. And with your stick you can do some very little adjustments. Here I can't actually move because I'm doing the stall. Whenever I actually do it with the ball, you can see that I can move my stick to the side, but I'm actually adjusting with my stick, so I'll move it up and down a little bit. So see how I'm moving my stick up and down a little bit often, just to adjust for little things, just so that I am actually pointing upwards the entire time. If my four wheels are not pointing upwards the entire time, then I'm doing something wrong. So I need to work my way into adjusting for that. So if your helis look something like this in the air, then you're doing something wrong. The belly of your car should always be pointing upwards, like this. Always, always. Even if you try and arrow a lot or move your stick a lot, then that's the way. And then the other way, the more common way, is you can actually adjust with your arrows, and that's just pressing your arrow a bit more often and just adjusting with either arrow. Usually what you want is use a bit more the arrow that makes you do inverted tornado spins, but other than that you're mostly just adjusting by moving your stick to the right or to the left, of course, if you're doing that. But really what you're doing is just pushing your stick to the right or to the left, and you just leave it there for the entirety of the shot. For example, I am not very good at doing that, although I can maybe try and adjust. I do actually move my stick a little bit, but whenever I try to not move my stick, I'm not super efficient, but whatever works for you. Alright, something like that. But yeah, you can see, so you can either adjust by moving your stick up and down a little bit, or you can just try and do a bit more inverted tornado spin so that you can boost upwards a little bit more often. There we go. And for example, I do both. I adjust for this with both my stick and my arrow. So now let's get into the more advanced little things about heli resets. Yeah, whenever you see people doing helis, one of the first mistakes that they do, it's not actually doing it, but they don't realize that you can actually stop your car. That way you can actually control your boost a little bit better. And so whenever you need to boost in a specific direction a bit more, then you can actually stop moving your car. So you just stop moving your stick at all, and then you boost in that direction. It's very difficult to do that, but it's still something that you do whenever you're doing helis. So if I have to boost, see how there I boosted in that direction. So that's one thing I'm looking for. You just have to let go of your stick and make sure that you boost in the right direction. So if you need a bit more boost, to like there again 2 times. I do it a couple of times just to make sure that I boost in the right direction. That's probably one of the first mistakes people do. Okay, now one of the other things that you can try and do whenever you're doing heli resets is you can try and do it from the ceiling. So that way you can actually see how much your boost actually affects how far away you can get and how far away the ball is and how much boost you need to get to the ball. So that's one of the things you can do whenever you're practicing helis. Other than that, let's actually get into progressing into doing the heli. Now that you understand it and now that you know the inputs to do the shot. So just the basic stall inputs, the basic side inputs, the basic adjustment inputs, and then the boost management inputs. So there we go. Those are all the inputs that you need, although now you have to practice it. So let's progress to that. For us to start progressing into doing helis, we actually need to go from the very, very basics to the most advanced things. And so the basics would be just not aiming at the ball, but aiming at the ceiling and understanding the motion. So what we're gonna do is actually just make sure that you can get to the ceiling and use this kind of motion. We'll also practice the follow-up, so don't worry about that. We'll get to that, but this is a very, very useful training pack to do that, and we'll do it. So I'll give you the training pack in the description and we'll start. So rather than aiming at the ball, we're just aiming at the ceiling. So right now we're only gonna focus on the inputs, and we're really just focusing on 2 things: the follow-up and the setup. So the setup and the follow-up. So the setup is really just a normal reset, but whenever you do the reset, you continue moving to the side. You can do it in 2 different ways. You can just kind of switch between tornado spinning and then moving your stick to the left. So if you use arrow right and then stick and then arrow left, or your stick to the left, then you can actually switch between both by doing a tornado spin. So you do a tornado spin like this, and then once you get to the ceiling, you just do an inverted tornado spin like that. So that's how some people like Faith do their setups for helis. I'll show you a clip here. You can see it in his setup that he approaches the ball with this kind of movement. He actually does an upwards input rather than a tornado spin, but it's still kind of the same input. It's still kind of the same motion. Okay, and so now with normal tornado spin, if I'm moving my stick to the right, then what I have to do is I just have to start moving my stick to the right with arrow. And whenever I feel like it, I just tilt back and start moving my stick to the right. There, you see how I do it? So I just keep on moving my stick to the right. The setup doesn't matter. Right now we're just trying to do the transition to the ceiling. So we're just aiming at the ceiling and making sure that you do the motion right to get into this position with inverted tornado spin. So now that you can do that, now you can actually aim a little bit better so that you can start doing the follow-up. So the follow-up is really, it's really just you doing an inverted tornado spin. And then doing a little counter adjustment. So you see how I move my stick to the right, so it's an inverted tornado spin. And then I put myself in the right position. If you want to learn more about counter adjustments and inverted tornado spins, then you can check out my masterclass. But that's a bit more, it's still not very hard to understand here. As long as you can see the transition and make sure that you can actually do something like this, you're gonna be just fine. It's all about reading the ball and making sure that you put your car in the right position. Here you're only aiming at the ceiling, so it's gonna be way easier for you to do it. If you can't do this, don't go ahead and do Heli resets, because you're not gonna be able to do them. First you have to aim at something that's big enough. So aim at the ceiling, and once you can actually aim at the ceiling and follow up from a shot that's very, very easy, then you can maybe start doing it with the ball. Okay, so now we can actually get into doing it with the ball. So we'll get into that. So we'll go out of this training pack. If you want to keep on doing this kind of training with the ball and without doing the first reset of the ball, then you can still do the same exact setup with a ceiling shot. So you can try and go for a reset from the ceiling, and now you don't need to aim at the ball for the very first reset. So that's pretty much the difference. Now that you can actually aim for the ceiling, it will be a little bit easier to get that first Heli reset going, but it's just a progression. So don't get frustrated, you'll get it. It's just a little progression. So now that you can do it in the ceiling, so the right motion to get the reset, now let's actually work on the setup, just the setup. So you can use free play or you can use a training pack, but I'll give you a little training pack I have. There we go. And with this training pack, we'll actually start practicing Helis. What you want to do is you want to go for the nearest goal, for the nearest setup. So the one that's closest to the goal, and the reason why is you want to start really adjusting for direction rather than just going for random resets on the ball. You actually want to start putting in a bit more direction for your Helis. Then you can actually start getting them from a little bit further away, but for now you really just want to get a bit of a closer setup so that you really focus on getting the right setup and the right direction for the shot. But there's really no issues with trying other setups. You can try that one or this one, doesn't matter. Both are equally useful, but they are useful so that you get very vertical setups and very close setups to the goal. Okay, we'll use this one. So really the setup, it's the same as the other shot from the ceiling. Now you're just aiming at the ball. You can either just get a normal reset like this and then start spinning, or you can actually start spinning right away. It depends on how well you can stall in different positions. If I do it early, then you'll notice how I time my stall so that I stall whenever I'm facing the goal. If I wait a little bit, I'm actually stalling whenever my car is pointing back. So I can't do that, for example, but it's still the same thing. Although you will see that it's a little bit more intuitive if you start spinning right away, because then it will be faster for you to get to this position where you're facing the goal, and it will be a little bit easier to progress with stalls. It's not straightforward, like you're not always flipping in the same direction, like you're not always flipping forwards. You're not always stalling forwards. So don't just think that every single time I stall, I do it like that, but at the beginning, it helps a little bit knowing that whenever you stall, you're actually stalling when your car is moving forwards. Alright, so now that you can do the setup, now let's focus on two things. So we'll focus on the movement, that's the first thing, and we'll focus on the boost management. So whenever I see a beginner do Heli resets, I see that they try and get the second reset, but they just get the second reset and the ball now is too far away from them. So I'll try and replicate a shot that like that, and then the ball is either too far away or their car is not in the right position, and really the only reason why that happens is because you're not adjusting with aero well enough. And so now you actually have to adjust with aero to make sure that you're actually moving your car in the right position and making sure that whenever you get the reset, you're not popping the ball forwards or you're not popping the ball backwards. You're actually popping the ball and then you are underneath the ball and the ball is above you. The ball is not going in any other direction but above of you. So there, see how I got the reset from the side and then I just kind of went in a whole another direction. My whole focus here is trying to get all of my resets from the very, like, just from underneath. One good drill to help with this is doing a bit more inverted tornado spins. So whenever you're doing anything with inverted tornado spins, you want to try and hit the ceiling with your four wheels like this. So you can use the first strength back that I mentioned to actually start doing something like this. But it's super useful to start actually moving a bit more with inverted tornado spins and really start understanding how to do it. And you can maybe start doing a drill like this so that you control more how your nose moves with this kind of movement. So let's try and trigger something similar to one of your problems. There, see how it just went super far away? That's really just boost management. I didn't boost, so a little replay. In my first reset, I didn't boost at the very moment I got the reset. And when I got the reset, I actually got it a little bit sideways, so I knew the ball was going in that direction and I didn't boost fast enough. So I had to adjust for that quick enough, but I didn't. So there are a lot of things that could go wrong. There, I just didn't invert a tornado spin enough. I actually just, you can actually see that. So I'll hit the ball with the side of my car. There, see how I hit the ball with the side of my car rather than with the four wheels? That's just because I didn't aero enough and I didn't hit the ball with my four wheels. So I actually have to make sure that I just aerial enough, and every time I hit the ball, I'm doing just enough of a tornado, inverted tornado spin, and enough aerial. You can always counter with your opposite aerial, although it's not necessary. You usually want to get perfectly, so you usually don't want to rely on adjusting afterwards. You want to actually get it right the first time. But see there, so there I wasn't boosting enough, and I didn't actually time my spins to get the next Helis. So now that you can do that, it's really just practice mostly. It's mostly practice. You can definitely try and do something like this. You can try and go into this other training pack, into the first training pack that I sent you, and try and catch the ball. And this will help you a bit more so that you understand how your car moves with inverted tornado spins. Something like that. But that's a bit of an extra tip. Okay, so now that you can actually kind of time your shots and get the first 2 or 3 resets properly, now you can actually start getting Helis, but without actually timing your stalls. So that's one thing that's very difficult for most people. Whenever you're timing your stalls, you're forcing yourself to boost at a very specific moment. You're forcing yourself to have the muscle memory, the right muscle memory, to just boost normally with very specific movements, and with it's just too specific, and it's just too difficult to carry on doing stalls like that with very specific timing. So now what you actually have to learn is you actually have to learn how to stall in any given position. You can see how I start stalling whenever I am not used to stalling. So whenever I'm tilted back, and whenever I'm just not in a very comfortable position to stall. You usually stall whenever you're facing the goal. But now what you want to start doing is you actually want to start stalling at any moment. Something like that. Just make sure that you may want to start rushing resets or slowing down and then getting them, but just make sure that you start varying how long it takes for you to get the next reset. Alright, so that's pretty much it for Heli resets. Now you can learn the follow-up. It's usually just doing a simple tilt back. You can maybe start just flipping right away once you feel comfortable. But with the first training pack that I give you, the follow-up should be, the way you follow up from the ceiling should be good enough to start following up from the ball. It's literally the same follow-up. You just need to practice and you'll get it. So go in here and just practice the follow-up a little bit more with shots like this. There we go. That's really just the follow-up. You can maybe even start doing the follow-up from a ceiling shot. So you can do it from the ceiling shot right away, like that. Or you can do it from the ceiling shot and then from the reset. You just have to get the follow-up from a single reset, like that, while spinning. And then you'll start to get the follow-up with time, but it just takes time, patience, and I know you can get it if you progress to it. There's a lot of things that go into a Heli resets, but it's pretty simple. The only things you really have to remember are whenever you're doing heli resets, you want to kind of hawk the ball so that you're boosting upwards a bit more. The way you hawk the ball is you actually do tornadoes, inverted tornado spins. If you're gonna stall while doing tornado spins, then you have to really think about stalling and using both arrows to do so. You can always do a whip back stall whenever you're doing heli resets, but it's really basic. Heli resets require you to use as little boost as possible. In heli resets, you have to make sure that you get resets very hard, like that, rather than with the side of your car or with the nose, and just otherwise your car will start tilting and it's just very hard to get resets that way. And then the last thing you have to remember is whenever you're trying to do follow-ups, you just have to make sure that you do them first without the ball or with the ball, but with more simple scenarios like the ones I showed you. And that's really it. Heli resets, it's all about practice, boost management, and control. But you'll get it, and I'll be here in your freestyle journey, here to help you, here to answer questions, and you can visit my masterclass to check out all the other things you can start learning and start actually learning aero properly, start really training mechanics that you never thought you could do. And from zero, if you're a beginner, if you have 100 hours, it's the course for you. If you have 10k hours, it's a course for you. So I suggest you get it. It's a super good course in my opinion. I spent a lot of time thinking about all the things that course would have, and yeah, if you want to get it, perfect. If not, I'll be posting some other videos from that masterclass on my YouTube, like such as this one, and I'm happy to help you and be part of your freestyle journey. So yeah, have a great day and see you.